This is just beige uglies. Thank you for joining the Escape With Me book club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Danielle.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we are going to somewhere in North America, maybe? Unconfirmed? I tried so much Google searching and there are no answers, but we are for sure going to the future. That's something. Published September 6, 2018, Imposters has us stepping back into the world of the Uglies series, but 2 generations later, but also maybe not. The internet might have lied to me.
It's like 20 years. It's not that long.
Because you're right. Their older brother, who is an unconfirmed age older than them, was around when the Pretty Rain got destroyed.
Yeah.
And their father was in a council during that time, so not 2 generations. The internet has lied to me. But we are back.
10 years is a generation. It's not, guys. That's not a generation.
No. Frey and Raffia are twins who live as one person under their tyrannical father. When an alliance with neighboring Victoria falls apart, Frey finds herself having to live the truth for the first time in her 16 years. With real lives on the line, can she save everyone she loves? Or will she have to choose who she will have to live without? So this was a you pick after getting burned out by the cinder.
It's just so long. I don't know. And then this is the other half of the Uglies series, so also still long. But you could start it without tallies.
I'm not saying it's not good, but these books are not as deep as Lunar Chronicles. Lunar Chronicles was deep in the philosophies and the world building and the all sorts of stuff. This was much lighter. I can see why you do not burn out as quickly with these.
Oh, yeah. Well, and if you've read the old ones, like the Ugly series in middle school, junior high, like most of us did, you don't really have to pick back up. The world building is still there, but they set so much up in the first half of the series that this is kind of just, oh, here's a nice little twist. Here's something that's weird. We now have spy cameras, but it's dust. Well, we have spy dust. That's weird. Okay. But the technology on that does not make any sense. This is more faulty, ugly series.
I am more willing to accept spy dust than I am that lesions can be eaten away when you mean a lesion that is already a cut.
And also, you can change all of the bones in your body, and it's fine.
Totally fine. Oh, and by the way, we're doing this to solve all the world's problems, except for all the people that were causing the world's problems are not pretty brained. So we'll get to my government thoughts later. But we both loved Uglies, or at least I loved Uglies as a middle school reader. I don't know when you picked it up.
It was about junior high, middle school.
And rereading those as an adult was absolutely illuminating and definitely killed all love, passion I had for the series. Maybe Uglies. It's an interesting concept, but when you get to specials, you're just like, whew, this is rough. This one is not rough. I'm glad he seems to have progressed as a writer. You would hope so. 10 years has passed, and he puts it to good use.
Well, and the author, Westerfeld, he does a lot of thought-provoking type of what if, very bad science, just runs with a thought.
I mean, they're soft science fiction writers, which is fine, but also don't explain it then. That's my thought. Just don't explain it.
I mean, the fact that he created 8 of these still in the same world.
He likes this world. He has enjoyed this world.
He did the world building pretty early on, and he's just like, I'm a coast. I'm going to just slightly tweak it, like extras just a little bit different than the first 3 Uglies.
Which I enjoy about that now. Not as a child being like, where's Tally? And now I'm like, screw Tally!
Well, and in this book, Tally isn't here. She's been missing for like 10 years. She went off the grid.
Again.
She's
really good at this. She was like, I'm going to go into the wild and everyone's going to fear me. And then she just keeps disappearing, not doing anything.
Just pop up if I feel like popping up.
Whatever. Before we get into it though. Age level YA, content warning. We got blood, gore, language, PG-13, death of an animal, kidnapping, war crimes. Not kidding. Death of a parent, nudity is mentioned, and there is abuse. Frey is abused really badly, but it's mental and emotional abuse. But this girl needs help. I'm worried. It is a huge jump from learning how to hoverboard and sneaking out of ugly dorms to assassin murder.
Yeah. He grew up. The author.
I feel like the series takes after Extras world-ending vibes. That's kind of the energy that it picked up from, and so not necessarily starting the series over again. But I also agree, it could stand on its own, although you would be a little confused. Why do they keep mentioning pretty stuff?
You could, theoretically.
You could.
You shouldn't.
So, judge a book by its cover. I thought this was gonna be like a multiple timeline thing because the cover I had has a girl with circular glasses on, and in one lens you see another girl that looks like her, and then the other one you see a city, and the city might have been on fire. I didn't look that closely, but it probably was. And so I thought this was going to be like a timeline thing. Oh, we can go to different timelines, and that's why it's all weird and whatever. I guess kind of like there's another series we do on the channel, Cross Time Traffic, where they have an entire business that, oh, this world is kind of dried up, so let's get resources from other timelines. And so it's not time travel, it's timeline travel. So you go to another timeline. Anyway, if you watch Marvel movies, the timeline, it's explained there. But that is not what this is. It's much simpler than that. But that's what I thought I was getting. And then I got something very different. Not disappointed. I don't think I would have picked it up from the cover. But all the covers are beige. And I have questions.
Yeah, it's like that almost sepia color.
Yeah. Frey is definitely a sad beige baby. That is an assassin.
Yeah, the other cover is white and kind of creepy. I don't have that one. I have the sunglasses one when I did the physical book.
It's so hard to look for it, too, because there's a comedy show called Imposters, which usually gets the SEO. Oh, yeah, that one is creepy. It's like a TV screen with interference. Some parts of the face are coming in clear, but most of it doesn't. I definitely wouldn't have gotten twin vibes from that.
Yeah. Well, and it's twins, but it's because she's created from her sister. They're the same. She only has pieces of herself. The rest are her sister.
They literally have a whole workout routine to have them exactly the same BMI. We start off the book and Raffi gets a scar and she decides to keep it. So they have to give Frey the same scar. And Frey is so mentally beat down and brainwashed, she refuses antiseptic for the scar because when Raffi got it, it hurt her. So she has to also hurt getting the scar because they are the same person.
This is not the first book I've done where twins are pretending to be one person or clones or stuff like that, or that What Happened to Monday show on Netflix. I'm a sucker. If you give me multiple people pretending to be one person, I'm in. Sold. I don't know why it's happened so many times, but this is not the first YA book series where twin girls were pretending to be one girl, but they were clones in the other one.
It is a popular trope, apparently.
There's more out there than you probably think.
If you like this, there is more. Oh my gosh. Okay, so here's the thing. It didn't happen in this book, but I definitely think it's going to be happening. First of all, this book should be Imposters, the book of terrible plans. Everyone's plan is bad. Everyone's plan is terrible. Not just the main characters, not the side characters. Everyone's plans, all of the plans are bad. And they should feel bad for making them.
At least in Pretties, they tried, though. Were their plans great? No. Were they eye-catching? Did they get attention?
Well, you could argue that the specials plan in the first book was good. By the end, you're like, what in the world? What is happening here? But that's specials. We're not talking about specials. So the first book is like, the specials had a good plan. Okay, we'll have a plant. They'll go. And it worked out. And then the second book, I feel like they had a good plan and then Tally messed it up. And then the third book is an abomination and terrible. But the plans, for the most part, made sense until the third book. And even the fourth book, not all our plans were good, but they weren't necessarily bad either. They were just ill-informed. All of these are bad.
Well, and the problem with this series is, yeah, the main characters are still 16, 17, 18, whatever, about the same age that Tally and all of them were in theirs. But there's adults that are a part of this.
Very involved in this.
Also, there's a special that's on the team, and she should know better than letting these teenagers be in charge of stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody stops anybody. Oh, you're the first daughter of Shreve. You're the first son of Victoria. So basically, president's kids, first families, but they're not quite king and queen type thing.
But kind of are at the same time, yeah.
Yeah.
The government structure was councils, and now because the common folk are not pretty-minded, the politicians, who were never pretty-minded to begin with, have decided that they no longer want to be in councils. I have so many questions, but politics aside.
Vaguely was a democracy, sort of. I mean, the people who were voting, or however these people got to be in political power, were pretty and brainwashed. So, but now they literally are like, no, we'll just turn this into a monarch based on the people who were already in power when we decided to have power.
Yeah.
More or less. I mean, they had enemies, and Rafi and Frey's dad definitely is a villain, hardcore.
Yeah.
You thought you didn't like Dr. Cable? She was looking out for the good of humankind.
It's true. Dr. Cable, you can give her. She thought she was doing what was right until you get to specials and you learn she's an idiot.
But she didn't know. This dude knows.
This dude knows.
I don't know. I love it. The mad genius behind all of his war tactics.
Yeah. And I know you can't tell me, but I feel like there's a very specific reason that the dad is named Father throughout the entire book. We never get his name. So I feel like that's going to be a reveal. Like, it's someone we know. I half expected it to be David, but then the background didn't make sense with him. Okay, not David. Is it Paris? Is it the guy with the F name that kept getting thrown into stuff? That's where I'm at currently. Well, you can't tell me. I know. But I feel that's coming up some point. I was surprised it didn't happen in this book, but it didn't. No, the other reveal I was expecting to happen, Raffi is the worst. I don't know why, but from the first time I feel like we meet her, I didn't trust her. And maybe it's because Frey so thoroughly trusts her that I just don't. And I messaged you and I said, I feel like we're getting that Shay perspective of Tally, because I thoroughly believe Raffi at some point is going to betray Frey. And she doesn't in this book. And that was probably the most shocking thing here, except at the end, they kind of hinted at that Raffi is working with their dad and Frey hasn't figured that out yet.
I'm not spoiling anything for this series. I ruined so many things in Cinder.
Oh my gosh. That's just my thoughts. And so I didn't like Raffi from the beginning, and that's going to be my vibe throughout this whole book. I think she's sus. I think the dad is sus.
He's not sus. He's full-on terrible evil.
Fair. Villain.
You can hate him. Go ahead.
They just start off and you get training and she gets her hands broken and they break her bones. And I'm just like, is it a cast? Not gonna throw it off, but don't worry, we have nanotechnology. And I'm just like, this twin thing was horribly thought out because at the age of 7, they waited until 7 for some reason. 7's when she starts becoming an assassin. I don't know what their goal was before that. Just gotta hang out, I guess. But also, she's the one that goes in front of the crowds in mass. Apparently, Raffi can go to things when it's like, oh, we know everyone in the room, which, by the way, is stupid because I don't know if you noticed, but all of his biggest enemies are people he used to be friends with. So that was a dumb plan to let her do anything. But Frey's the one that goes out with the population in general, and Frey knows nothing that Raffi knows. She doesn't know French. She doesn't know any sort of etiquette rules. She doesn't know power structure or anything. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you have 1 month to learn all of this. What if she was just talking to a random citizen and they started talking French to her? Because the princess knows French and German, but because the princess knows French.
I also don't understand why they didn't just make both girls well-rounded and it's more heavy on murder with Frey.
Yeah, Frey should have gotten the same lessons that Raffi did. How was she going to go talk to a line of people without knowing etiquette?
Yeah, teach her the very basics of French and different languages so she can greet people and say stuff like that. But she goes out and she's hardcore. She's like, I'm such a better dancer. I am in the club dancing with all her friends. I don't really know any of their names. What is wrong with you? You just look at the feed and only vaguely know them from this, but you spend potentially hours dancing. You don't say a single thing to them the whole time that you don't know them.
Yeah, she's the one in receiving lines with everyone coming in, but she doesn't recognize any important people. She doesn't know their names.
She didn't even know Victoria had a son. They have two. The Palafoxes, they have two sons. And she's like, oh, I didn't even know they had a son.
The city is not that far from you.
Yeah, they're the sort of neighboring city.
Even as an assassin, how do you not know your current political alliances? How do you know if they're a threat if you don't know what's going on with the politics?
They should have just taught Raffi how to shoot people, and I feel like she'd be okay.
Really? It's a bad plan.
I get that they want to distinguish, oh, I was always the fighter. She was always the one that made the speeches.
And you can do that and still give her the etiquette lessons. She's like, oh, I can completely mimic her gestures and what she would do and her tone of voice. And I'm like, then how do you not know what etiquette is? Because that's what she's doing, is etiquette.
She can't set a table.
But she can sit at dinners. What?
She's not allowed to eat.
And it's so stupid. It's honestly really stupid. And they have to go out of their way to make this happen. And they disappear anyone who finds out the truth to the point that one of the people on the med team don't even tell them her name. This is stupid.
Yeah, you just gotta lean into it because it's the whole series. It's just the whole book. It's an identity crisis on steroids, but actually there's no drug use. No. Yeah, I'm trying to think because with the Uglies series, there was bulimia type things, actual drug use, cutting, different things that are very harmful for teenage girls to be reading about.
And it's not handled well in I'm a person that cuts and it feels good for me, but I learned my lesson from it. No, it glorifies it.
They're never chastised for doing any of the harmful physical and emotional things that they do. To be fair, the twins also have a lot going on between the physical abuse and you're not a person, you're a shadow of your sister. And so much so that the dad does not see or talk to Frey unless Raffi is there. Even the meeting that's about Frey going to the Palafoxes. Oh, well, obviously Raffi was there.
How?
He does some one-on-ones with Raffi, I guess, maybe. Frey's not positive.
No, they definitely do one-on-one meetings, 100%.
Yeah, but Frey doesn't get any of that. The biggest issue thing is her identity crisis because she's not a person. She's not a person without her sister, and she, for the first time in her life, is sent somewhere where she has to be a person, even though she's pretending to be her sister.
Yeah, the scar scene definitely set up. Frey is, I'm concerned.
Yeah.
She's not okay. But it's not glorifying it, so that is a definite positive.
And everybody that realizes what's happening says something.
This is messed up. Even Raffi is like, this is messed up. Granted, she's thinking about herself because of course she is. But it's messed up. It's weird. And it takes so many people convincing Frey that this is messed up for her to be like, oh, yeah? But at the same time, she also switches sides so fast. She goes to the Palafoxes because they have a rusty ruin. And apparently they... See, this is the thing where it gets weird. Where, oh yeah, they were born when the Pretty Rain happened, but also they've been mining for like 20 years. They're like, oh yeah, we got rid of this like 20 years ago, even though you weren't doing that. It's, I don't know. The timeline's a little sus. I might need to actually reread it to be like, what is the timeline here? But anyway, the Palafoxes have a rusty ruin in their boundaries, so they have a lot of metal. Apparently, the twins' dad loves building stuff. I don't understand. I stand by if all of the government people are making conscious choices to do this stuff, there's no reason they cannot continue to make conscious choices, except obviously this guy is a sociopath. Absolutely. But not talking about that. So they have metal, but they're having a problem because they're having a bunch of rebellions by the rebels And the rebels are apparently Tally worshippers, basically. But they're what are they? The smoke?
The Smokies?
Yeah, they're the Smokies, but they don't have a smoke. So they're having issues with them because they're like, oh, don't strip the land because you're going to strip this stuff and then you're going to start mining again. Even though I'm pretty sure the mining stopped because, wait a second, before I get into that, what happened to extras? What happened to shooting all of the metal that exists into space to form a space station? That doesn't even get mentioned in this book.
Well, because they didn't ship it out. They got stopped by Tally.
The epilogue was a bunch of people were for the cause. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. And they totally did shoot a bunch of metal into space. That is accurate. So what happened to that solution? I mean, it was a stupid solution, but it was something. Anyway, the point is, the rebels don't want them to go back to mining and stripping the land and whatever. So they're trying to keep them from using the rusty ruins because they're going to run out of that, which is also a bad plan. This is not conducive to anything. Honestly, it doesn't work at all. But beside the point. So the Palifaxes have metal. The twins' father has an army. And so the Palifaxes agree to allow the father to use their army to get rid of the rebels. Why? What is in it for the father? Terrible. This is a terrible plan. They allow the army to come into the area to take care of the rebels, and then they're just supposed to leave? Even for normal military strategy, that's not a good plan. And they kind of know it, because then they decide, to keep you from keeping the mine, which they have every resource and reason to do, we're gonna hold your one and only daughter, they assume, hostage. So if you keep the mine, we keep your daughter?
Yeah.
This isn't a good plan. TM. We're going to trademark it, put this on merchandise at this point. That's just the theme of today, as I said. So this is their plan. And like I said, just stop and think. Even if he wasn't a tyrannical, evil man, which everyone knows he is, what does he get out of clearing the rebels for the Palifaxes? Nothing.
I think they were trading some of the Rusty Ruins area, or some of the mining stuff. They're not giving him everything, but that's why they are doing the daughter trade, because they thought that he might try and take everything while he was there.
Which he does.
Which, I mean, obviously.
Haha, they didn't count on the fact that there was actually twins, and Okay, going back to the father. The father decided at this point, we find out at the very end of the book, Frey is too powerful. She is going to bring down everything we've worked for. So why did you send her out of the house to a place that you know is the exact opposite of the cultural view of your city? He was just tempting fate there. I don't understand. Because then he decides, hey, I'm going to kill her, because he bombs the city, basically the castle, the big house, the mansion in town, and kills most of the Palifaxes. And supposedly he's going to kill Frey, who's going to be Raffi's body double. This whole time you've created this thing. Why?
I don't know.
I still like this book. Don't get me wrong. I actually very much enjoyed this book. I think I gave it 5 stars. But all of the plans are bad. And I just want to talk about it.
The dad doesn't see Frey as a person or care about her at all. And so if he only cares about Raffi, and even that, she's a means to an end. She is someone to take over his line, someone to keep up with what he's doing.
Even though she's way more of a threat than Frey is, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, but he doesn't see the girls as anything. He sees Frey as just
despair.
He doesn't see the true potential or weaknesses or threat that both girls are in their own different ways. And he thinks they're more compliant than they are. Even Raffi with all her tantrums and talking back. But you're going to do what you have to do.
And also it's secretly hinted that maybe Raffi helps him. I don't know. I think that final meeting just confirmed what I was feeling. But I don't know. I usually give villains a really hard time when they're so evil and power obsessed that they kill their own heirs. But okay, he had a wife and she was very beautiful, and that is why he loved her, because, you know, that BS. She had a son, and the son was kidnapped and killed. And during that, the mom tried to protect him and got killed herself. So he had the doctor harvest her eggs, which just feels very gross. It'd be one thing if she froze eggs. after her death, they harvested her eggs, and then they decided to, I don't even know who gave birth to the twins. I don't even want to know, but had another child with those eggs. And so that's how you got the twins.
But specifically made sure it was identical twins. I don't know how the science on that worked, how they made the zygote or whatever split.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. Because it would have been very easy to make fraternal twins. 2 eggs, 2 sperm. Very easy.
Yeah. The science isn't sciencing, but I don't care, so.
I think he does a good job, and he does the soft science thing where he just says what happens and goes, science! And then moves on. Because the problem was, he kept trying to explain stuff. I noticed something so particularly. In the Uglies series, he describes how the Rusties destroyed themselves through exploding gasoline.
Yep.
It was stupid and doesn't make sense and should not have kicked off the world had it kicked off. So in this one, he just casually mentions that instead of mentioning the bacteria that causes gasoline to explode, he just says, and the weapons the Rusties use to annihilate each other with. Much better. I could see that happening. We have so many properties of nuclear war, and that would make sense of why we created, well, I mean, not completely make sense, but much better than let's make the general population stupid because a scientist, who we are not making stupid, caused bad things to happen. And he does so much better in these books. He's just like, thing. Cool, we're going on. And that's exactly what you need to do with soft science fiction. Don't try to explain. Just be comfortable in the fact we are going to do the thing and move on. Trust your audience, like Danielle, to just be here for it.
I'm the audience. I love it. You say one line, I'm with you. Don't even explain it. Don't bother.
Yeah, because did you feel like you benefited when he tried to explain it in Uglies?
No, I also did not care or notice as often as you did with some of the stuff, like with the lesion, because it clearly says it's a lesion. It could be a tear. It could be a
tumor.
Yeah.
And I seriously, when we did the first book, Lizzie was like, I think it's a cut. And I was like, no, it has to be a tumor, because in the next books, they have nanos that eat it. And then you get to next book and it's cuts.
Yeah, very clearly. Yeah. He didn't know.
Subtraction with subtraction does not equal addition. What?
Yeah, they were for sure tumors, though, just based on how the fill worked.
Yeah. Anyway, I think he does a much better job. Also, I'm mad. They're going through the ruins because they want to make a show about his army being great and what the rebels and whatever. Except they're not. The rebels are much more powerful than they think they are. And they ended up crashing and whatever. And so Frey and this war lady, who has a name but isn't that important, are in this random building that seems to be where some of the rebels hang out. And there's rebel signs and the thing that says she isn't coming to save us, and Frey is so confused who she is.
It's Tally. It's Tally lore, guys.
It's really not hard. And then someone says that Tally is the first rebel? Excuse me?
She might be the most traumatic rebel.
She might be the biggest rebel, but she was not the first rebel. That's the plot of the first book.
Unless they're not counting the Smokies as rebels, which they should.
100%.
But even of the rebels, Shay was before she was.
Every step of the way.
All of the other little special cutters that got their cure or whatever, they were all rebels before Tally was. Tally was such a last-minute addition to the crew of people that wanted to actually stop and do anything.
And she's the one who kept screwing up.
I know. My favorite part forever, when she hoverboarded dramatically so far to try and save and do things on her own, and then David shows up and is like, hey, yeah, I took the helicopter halfway through and I've just been waiting for you for like a whole day.
Yes.
That mentality, it's Tally.
I stand by it. The original rebels were David's parents.
Oh, for sure.
But we're not going to mention them. It's just Tally. I hate them.
In this city, there's no telling because rebels and Smokies came from different pretty ugly cities.
Yeah, I have no idea where this city is. So they mentioned some geography stuff. They mentioned islands. They mentioned Cuba. And they mentioned at one point eating yucca. And yucca is kind of a potato, sort of, but not a potato. It's its own thing. It's its own plant. But it kind of is a potato family. Feels like it's a perennial.
Definitely thought Mexico, South America, because the grandma is also called abuela.
Yes.
They call the mom jefe, which is boss in Spanish.
I thought they were in Europe.
Oh, for sure not.
Because they were like, oh, if you go south, they speak Spanish instead of French. And I was like, okay, so maybe Britain, somewhere over there, maybe, so not in France, maybe they're in Portugal, because we don't know what their native language is. We assume it's English, but I mean, it could have been Portuguese for all we knew. But then they were like, no, the boarding schools in Europe, and we're over here. Okay, and they mentioned eating yuca, and yuca I usually see in Cuban styles. I think it's all over South America, but let's see, where is it from? Let me double check. But I've had it. I think it's pretty good. It's native to the Americas and the Caribbean, the coastal lowlands and dry beach scrubs of the coastal areas of southeast United States, along the Gulf of Mexico, South Atlantic states, and the coastal Texas to Maryland. Why don't we have more yucca? Yuca's really good. I am sad. Anyway, totally beside the point. Highly recommend. But I thought, okay, so we're eating yucca. And so I thought maybe we're in South America somewhere. Because the other city is Victoria. And I thought, well, maybe this is some sort of still leftover colonial stuff from whatever. And I thought maybe South America, above Brazil, there's an area that speaks French, and areas around it would speak Spanish. And then, of course, below it is Brazil, but maybe Brazil speaks Spanish now instead of Portuguese. But it would have made sense that they would speak Spanish and speak French, but also maybe another language. Anyway, I thought South America, but then they said they went south to get to Cuba and the Bahamas. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe the southeast? Well, where the heck would Victoria be? Florida has those Spanish roots. And then I thought, well, maybe Georgia, but I can't think of anywhere where Georgia would have a city named Victoria. I don't know. I put a lot of thought into this, and I cannot figure out where the heck this is. And that's why I don't think it's Latin America, because of the city Victoria, which is very obviously probably named after Queen Victoria. But they speak Spanish. I don't know. I tried. He needs to come out with another book like he did with the first series when we learned that it was in Seattle and not in Appalachia. And then we were like, oh, Diego, so San Diego. And that was the other thing. I thought for a hot second maybe they were in California, but then they don't mention Diego at any point.
According to some random website that I found, Shreve, where they live, is near Louisiana, Shreveport.
Well, they mentioned, okay, here's the other thing. The White Mountain, which is a volcano that is apparently relatively active. It went off like 60 or 90 years ago. Where is that? I looked up volcanoes. I mean, Stone Mountain, people say it's a volcano, but it wasn't really formed like a normal volcano is. And there are volcanoes in the Appalachian, but not far enough south. Where?
According to this random website that was updated in 2021 and seems legit because it's, I don't know, a random fan website, so I believe it. It says that Victoria is located near the ruins of Ciudad Victoria, I'm going to mispronounce this, Tamaulipas, Mexico.
So they went from Louisiana to Mexico?
Girl, I don't know. I'm just looking at the map.
They said it was the closest city.
And then Paz, which I don't know if it's in this book or in the next one, but it's also in the ruins of La Paz, Baja California Sur, Mexico. So that one, when they're next to it, makes sense.
See, that was something that came up later. They mentioned the Baja Island, which all I could think of was Baja California, which is actually in Mexico. It's confusing. It's that little skinny piece on the far left.
That's where Paz is.
Yeah. So I thought, oh, then they're from California maybe. But like I said, they don't mention Diego. Anyway, she gets there and the mom and grandma seem to be like, oh, you two should have some alone time. And he's like, ugh, I hate this. This is terrible. They're trying to set us up. It's the worst. Anyway, we should totally still be friends. And she's kind of doing the exact same thing where she's like, yeah, allies. And he's like, yeah, allies. Later on, you come to find out that Cole's idea was the hostage thing and trying to get her trust and get on their side or whatever. And I kind of get where he was coming from, but this is still a terrible plan.
I mean, he thinks that she's Rafia, and so he's like, man, my parents want us to hook up.
This sucks.
Let's just be friends. Okay. Great plan, though. I mean, honestly, of any of the plans,
probably the best one we got.
I can just make her fall in love with me.
By acting like I don't want you to fall in love with me, which, I don't know.
I get it. Cole Palafox, he does what David could never have done. Every chance that you get.
Cole is a loyal boy, that is for sure.
He's my man. Represent. David who?
please, for real though. So yeah, they hang out and whatever, and so he is like, hey, we're normal people and we don't spy on our citizens constantly. And she's like, how do you solve your murders? He's like, you realize they did that before Spy Dust, right? And she's like, but how do you do it? I'm so confused. You need to have, and I know she is brainwashed, but at the same time, she comes across a little dense. And she is. For other reasons. Not this, but girl. Not that hard to imagine.
Frey is such a tough, bad, cool girl, and then she says things out loud, and I'm like, girl, keep that in your head.
Stop talking.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, she knows that what her dad is doing is wrong. And maybe it's supposed to be like, oh, she doesn't realize how wrong it is and how terrible it is, and that's what kind of radicalizes her into action. But, girl, you can't be like, my father is terrible, I would murder him for my sister. But you don't want to spy on everything your citizens are doing? I'm so confused.
Well, she also literally grew up with spy dust. Her and Rafi have a moment where they turn on the shower to fog it up and kill the spy dust for 10 minutes or whatever, but they've never known a life without it. And so that part doesn't bother me as much because it's like, oh, how do you solve murders?
Yeah.
She's dumb, but of all the stupid things that Frey says out loud, that one's not as difficult for me to understand.
Yeah.
Also, not every town has as many murders as she thinks are just happening in the world. And I don't know if it's because she only gets propaganda from her dad.
Probably. In the words of Legally Blonde, happy people don't kill people. Pretty simple. But she just hangs out with them for a month. She meets a person named Yandri for a hot second because she's going to become important later. But Yandri helps them break out or charge a pulse knife, an old pulse knife, which I do not believe more people don't know what pulse knives are. He literally has it in a case in his historical things. He's like, what does that do? And then she tells him, he's like, oh my goodness, bruh.
Or was he playing dumb to be on her side?
Fair enough. But
you don't think the daughter of a dictator knows what a pulse knife is? Hello.
Counterpoint. Later on, we meet this guy that has surged himself to be Wolf-Life. And she's like, oh, I'm bringing a knife to this fight. And he's like, yeah, that's good. And she's like, oh, but it's a little high tech. He's like, that's lame. He has a pulse weapon. He literally has a pulse spear that does the exact same thing, but it's a spear instead of a knife.
Yeah, but it was cooler
when it was just a knife, I guess. Pulse spears are fine, but knives, that's lame.
I stand with X on that.
So there's also the whole thing of she should have known there was something weird going on because you have to use retina scans to get into this place. So the mom's going to figure out that you went into this place several times very suspiciously. Anyway, beside the point, a hint that the Palafaxes are waking up old weapons and so like bombs and stuff. And very quickly, hey, guess what? They have bombs.
Okay, so basically, while she's being held hostage, whatever, doing their trade thing, she spends like a whole month kind of slowly befriending Cole. They're very quick to be like, oh, we're allies. They're together or should be together. They have a huge future.
They fall for each other real fast and real hard and then stay loyal the entire book.
Yeah, it's a little too quick for me. I don't know. You were in a situationship.
I honestly feel like, okay, so the whole month I think was totally set up. I mean, maybe he was falling for her in little ways, but not, oh my gosh, I'm in love with you. I think their relationship actually happened after the explosion and then they just had a series of trauma bonds.
Yeah, that's true. But to be fair, Tally and David had some of that, and they were super weak as a couple.
Yeah, but they were both very not great people, honestly. They were toxic as everything. These are, well, I mean, Cole's a well-adjusted person. Frey is just a good person, I guess. I don't know how through all of that she wasn't twisted more, but that's beside the point. Anyway, there's this stupid thing where Raffi, through the feeds or whatever, spy junk. It's like, hey, you're hanging out with Cole a bunch. If you like him, wear a red jacket. And if you don't like him, wear a white jacket.
Oh, that was so devastating for me.
And Frey is like, okay, well, I mean, yeah. Oh, my sister, some gossip, I guess, because she's been locked in her room for a month.
I've never had anything to share before. I love that I get to share this with my sister.
So she ends up wearing the red one, and then Raffi just calls her and yells at her like she's the dumbest thing that ever existed, which just confirmed to me that she's my least favorite character in this book. And apparently this was a test that the dad set up, and oh, you should have worn the white one. Now he's gonna bomb the entire city. This is not...
Showing you care is a weakness, and Frey should know better.
This is war crimes. I mentioned war crimes. Yes, war crimes. That is so beyond the rational thing to do. And I know he's evil, villain, terrible, the worst possible ever, but I mean, I don't respect him because it's not like a villain you could appreciate in some ways, because the best villains, I feel like, are people that you can see where they went wrong and you can kind of learn from that and you understand where they're coming from, but they're still super evil and a terrible person. I like to think of, I mean, granted, I also love just a cruel villain like Cruella de Vil who just wants to skin puppies for fashion, but you get her logic there. He's just so over the top evil. I can't even appreciate that of him. And his plans are stupid as well as everyone else. So there's nothing admirable in his I control the world. It just feels like when someone has a slight insult, brings out the small guns, he just bombs everything. That seems to just be how he's stayed in control. And it's just, that's exhausting.
She mentions multiple times that no one will ever see what he's going to do coming because it's so out of pocket, secretly creating twins and hiding one for 17 years. And just a bunch of other dumb things that are like, oh, he's so emotionless and doesn't care about anything, and yet is the most emotional, trigger-happy person in the world.
For real. When you meet him, he is so overly emotional. He doesn't talk like a calculating, intelligent person. He talks like someone who's constantly, I mean, first of all, paranoid, but as someone who acts emotionally and doesn't think 8 steps ahead like she's been making him out to seem. He just seems like he does whatever feels right in the moment and it's just worked out for him.
Which, to be fair, Raffi is so much like her dad. And then Frey comes out of nowhere.
I feel like Raffi's more calculating. I feel like she can play the long game better. And that's why the people like her.
Yeah.
She plays the long games.
She knows how to work the crowd, even though she's not the one in the crowd.
And she has Frey on side, even though she's totally making plans with the dad to get her murdered. I don't believe for a second she didn't know she was getting murdered. But that's beside the point. You can't tell me yet. I know, but I assume the worst of her as well. I stand by it. Anyway, Frey has to escape. She has a way to do it thanks to Cole. But here's the thing. This book is super serious, but it's also super not serious. She is climbing a tree and a snake comes out of nowhere. And to solve this problem, she just grabs the snake by the tail and throws it at a drone. And then the drone is too heavy and it falls down. That is some cartoon nonsense right there. And so you have these action scenes interspersed, and some of them are serious, but some of them are not serious. And I don't know, it just balances the mood where it doesn't feel like Cinder, where it gets super serious. I would argue this is a beach read.
I wouldn't go quite that far, but it is light for how dark it is.
Because once you talk about it, you're like, wow, that's actually really dark. Now that I think about it, maybe it's just a little bit of Southern humor. You know, that whole, this is actually terrible, but we're making a joke out of it because you either laugh or cry kind of vibe. But once you say it out and you're like, wait, that's not funny. But we think it's funny, but that's not funny. And that's kind of how this feels, where it's like, okay, this is very serious with war crimes, but also you have 3 random teenagers stealing not stealing, they did rent it, but renting a limo.
And just showing up to a battlefield area.
And being like, hey, you want coffee? It balances out to still be a YA. I don't think it's even a 17, 18-year-old YA. I feel like if you read the Uglies series in middle school and you were fine, then you could read these.
a lot lighter, for sure.
Even though what we're saying is very serious, it is so much lighter.
So basically, Cole's almost whole family dies, every person he knows and has ever cared about, because he was helping Frey escape. He didn't know exactly what was going to go down, but...
He's like, I still need to keep her on side, and so he goes with her, and then the bombing happens.
But thankfully, after a bunch of mishaps and doing nothing, and there's a special Zura who joins their team.
Who is the only reason they're alive for so many things. She deserves way more credit than she gets. But, I mean, granted, she does get promoted to a position she was probably unqualified for, so I guess it works out. But, yeah, like you said, kind of nonsense.
I like getting to see a special that's not Tally or Shay or all their Cutter friends.
True.
She's an actual adult who knows how to take care of these teenagers who are just randomly being a part of this.
Yeah, because even Cole, who has some salt of the earth hobbies, bow and arrow, camping stuff, he's still a rich boy.
Well, and even Frey, with all of her training and everything, she can't survive in the wild without Zura.
She's a city girl, for sure. As much as they try to paint it like, oh, we've done survival tactics. No, you haven't.
She had to get explained about the sneak suits and about the protective whatever, and it's, oh, well, you can pee in there and drink it, do all this special suits.
And she had to be like, oh, we can string them together and make a tent. And she's like, oh, I don't know what they've been doing for the past 10 years with her, but it's not survival training. Also, speaking of which, that real quick, we did skip over it. They immediately do a body scan of her and they're like, wow, you have had a lot of broken bones. Has no one else ever done that?
She's never left.
Yeah, but a normal enemy of Shrev, no one in Shrev has ever done it? I don't know. It's dumb. Anyway.
The spy dust is controlled by their dad. Why would he let anybody have information on them?
Yes. Anyway, they start and they go to a bunker and he's like, oh, this is really... I don't know why he was so roundabout about this. He was like, you need to understand who our family really is. And so we go to a bunker and it's like, okay, it's a bunker. Oh, you also have plasma guns? Only they have plasma guns? Why does Shrev not have plasma guns or an equivalent? But that's beside the point. Victoria has plasma guns. He's like, see, this is who we really are. And none of that made sense until he was like, hey, let me actually explain what's going on. You didn't need to show her the bunker to be like, hey, this was my idea. But okay. Also, they claim that no one's bombed anyone in the past 300 years, which is not correct. They bombed Diego. That was kind of the whole climax of Uglies. They can't even get their Tally lore right. Goodness.
Another moment of levity. They are just sleeping, all three of them together in this little makeshift tent. And she's like, wow, there's a rock that's super annoying. And she turns and gets it. And it's a note from his little brother. What are the chances?
And even she's like, if she had put the tent somewhere else and wasn't possibly being passive aggressive by making her sleep on a rock, how would we have found this?
It's so funny because it's the stupidest.
And that's the thing is, like, there's so many stupid moments. You know when people post memes of celebrities and they're like, oh my gosh, she's so unserious or whatever, you know, that's this book.
Yeah. So that was funny. And then they do the little code, whatever, figured out. And then in crashes a limo.
Straight up limo. Because up to this point with the limo, Cole worries about his little brother who is in boarding school. He's like, oh no, I need to get to message to them. But they're like, well, we can't get the message. They'll find us. And then the news feed goes crazy with his little brother has been kidnapped. And he's like, oh my gosh, he is in enemy hands. He is freaking out. His mom is, well, I mean, he doesn't know his mom's dead. He thinks his mom is alive because, oh, she has the code book. But Layla is definitely dead. His city is being captured. Once again, I do not believe Louisiana is capturing a town in Mexico.
Yeah.
There has to be a city closer than that, right? Anyway, and all this terribleness is happening. But then the limo shows up and he just walks out with two of his buddies. And he's like, yeah, we just decided to leave and trash our room because one of the girls is in propaganda class and takes it way too seriously.
That was so funny.
She worries me.
She should.
Because she has the mind for propaganda, but not the ethics to know when and how to use it. I was thoroughly convinced. I am shocked it did not happen. Because this girl learns about Frey and Raffi being twins, and she immediately like, this is great. We can hurt his pride. And they're like, no, no, it's not your story to share. And even Frey notices she gives up a little too easily, right? And then they're like, okay, we're going to drop you off on this random city, and then you're going to go home that way. And she ends up pretending that she was captured by the dad and they made a harrowing escape. I thoroughly expected her to spill the twin secret, but she doesn't. And that's weird. But anyway, Theo has the code book because
the mom gave it to him before.
At Christmas break because she knew something like this could... Why?
Because she literally was like, no, the only way we're going to have this deal is if you give me Rafi as a, hostage. And so she knew when she took Rafi that there was a chance terrible things were about to happen. They lock up all the weapons because they think, I guess, maybe that Rafi might be the one to harm them, never fully believing that the dad would bomb the whole city.
Yeah. And honestly, the rest of that section is action scenes.
Yeah.
Which, once again, I think his action scenes are his strong point. And I think he does a much better job because he had kind of a formula in the Uglies trilogy where it's like, oh, a section in the city, then a section in the wild, and then a section of special stuff. And it becomes so formulaic, but in this book, he manages to differentiate the action scenes and in their tone and what they're doing and the solutions to the stuff, that it's all very good. I mean, not much plot happens, but it's good. It's part of the beach read, I guess. Anyway, they decide at some point that they're going to attack the tower and rescue Rafi and spill the secret, and the whole world will clap. I guess they didn't think too hard about this, but somehow in all of the action scenes, they get the rebels to join them. So they have the rebels, they have what was left of the Victoria's forces, and yeah, they're going to just go attack the tower. So despite having that whole argument about Tio being like, oh, I need to help you, I need to be doing something active, and Frey being like, yeah, I totally understand that. That's what caused Rafi to break. They're going to make Tio stand back in safety and do nothing.
Yeah, they're like, Tio, we don't need you.
That was a great speech Frey gave, but we're going to do what we were going to do earlier, just now. Cole's going to be on the front lines with the battle, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why he's doing that. He has no military training. What does he think he's going to do? Besides, at the end, when he gets kidnapped, what else was going to happen there? I was surprised he was not dead, honestly.
He's got to support the troops. Which at this point, he is the leader.
The head of the Palafaxes.
Yeah, because he was the first son, and now he's, I guess, whatever they call the first person.
Yeah. There's a moment, just cut, to show you how dense Frey is. They're talking about Rusties again, which is us. We're Rusties because our metal rusted. They talk about some sort of bombing or something or other, some sort of conflict. And Cole is like, there was a conflict about economic systems. And Frey says, that's Rusties for you. Honey, what do you think we're doing right now?
Are the Rusties in the room with us?
Girl. And there's never a moment of clarity with that. It's just straight, not hypocrisy because she means it, but just, girl, why are you in charge of this? This is not making me feel better about you taking control about breaking into this tower.
At least Cole kind of seems to know what's happening.
Yeah.
And Rossi, for all her faults, she's aware. Poor Frey. She just doesn't ever fully get what's going on.
No.
Even when she's making the plan.
How is she the assassin murderer and also the most innocent person in the room?
It's a very conflicting. I wish we got some Rafi insight. I know why they don't, and I mean, even with Callie's story, you focus on one character, and I like that it continues with Frey's point of view, but I don't know. I would love to have some Rafi insight.
Or anyone.
Or anyone that has half a brain. Cole, I would do a dual POV with him. Would love that.
Alas. Oh, by the way, they meet up with these 3 rebel leaders when they're talking about taking over the tower. One of them is Yandri. Apparently she was, not only are they a rebel leader.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're a leader. X, who is this surged mix of wolf/human, and all the furries cheered.
Just Beauty and the Beast. That's just what I pictured.
He has personal business. And I thought that he was the son of the Japanese tutor. That's where my mind went, because she definitely disappeared for no good reason. No, he was in love with the rebel that got murdered by Frey in the beginning of the book. And Frey goes out of her way to be like, I'm not going to tell him that.
That will not blow up in your face, Frey.
That's coming. I know that's coming. Anyway, the third person is Andrew Simpson Smith.
For no reason. This book.
Andrew Simpson Smith has done more for this planet than Tally ever did. He's involved in everything. He was with the New Smokies. He was with the aliens. He's now with the rebels. He was in Seattle, and then he was in Japan, and now he's in Mexico.
Dude is a world-class traveler, okay? He escaped his little prison reservation.
He's just everywhere. How is he not being worshipped like Tally is? He's involved everywhere. Oh my gosh, that was such a random pick.
I love it. I refuse to accept slander about Andrew Simpson Smith.
Oh, I have no slander for him. I'm so happy to see him. He still knows what's up. He has come so far, and I'm so happy for him, even though he's probably like 60, 70 at this point.
No, he was like, what, maybe 30 in Uglies?
But that's like 20 years ago, maybe longer.
Yeah, he was 20 to 30 because he was not old.
But he was old enough to have a big position in the tribe, but it also felt like the tribe didn't last. Your age wasn't very long.
At the youngest, he was 18.
And then in extras, the brother, he was either the year before or year after where the pretty surgery stopped. I think 5 years after. So like 35. And then this is 20 years later, maybe more.
I do like that the author has kind of updated. Well, I mean, he quit with all of the crazy, harmful stereotypes with cutting and eating disorders and stuff like that. But also, there are a bunch of LGBT and non-binary, and it's so casual, it's not a big deal. It's only been 20 years since The Pretty Rain. They were very clearly only heterosexual couples, and only everybody was a boy and everybody was a girl. And it's because Yandere is non-binary, and then with Wolf and his partner being the assassin who was a male. I don't know. I like that for the authors.
I mean, it is how many years later? 20 years later? Now, when he wrote this, it was probably 10 years after Uglies.
Just to see that he evolved the world with the current world instead of keeping it in the, no, you have to have eating disorders. No, you have to. Let's glorify all the bad.
But I absolutely could believe that this existed beforehand and Tally was just oblivious to everything not Tally.
True. There's zero anything in the first 4 books.
No, it definitely comes across like he's changed kind of as a person. I mean, granted, 2006, we were not worried about pronouns and non-binary people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right.
But it's just so casual that it's like, oh, he updated. Cool. Good for you.
Which I absolutely think is the correct decision.
Oh, yeah.
Because if he had made a big deal about it, I think it would just come off as pandering.
Well, especially because it's like, oh, well, 20 years ago, they didn't have this. If they said that about The Pretty Rain, I don't know. I feel like that would be pandering.
But they break into the tower and, okay, the most anticlimactic thing ever. Frey and Naya meet up, and Naya has been her coach since forever and is just significantly better than her because, you know, she's an adult beating up a child regularly. And there's this scene in the beginning of the book where she is so much infinitely better than Naya. And so now it's Frey and Naya, and you're like, oh my gosh, she's going to have to fight her teacher, and the teacher's so amazing. Oh my gosh. No, Frey just uses her pulse knife.
Which can cut through walls.
Which can also cut through walls and drones and turn them into ribbons and whatnot. Beside the fact that the knife is made of obsidian, I don't even know what this knife is made out of, that it's so freaking sharp and hard. But that's so... Naya didn't have any sort of anti-pulse knife weapon in their training. If you gave her a pulse knife and the leader is worried that she's going to turn against you at some point, so you had nothing in case she had a pulse knife? which she is known to have.
It's her favorite little weapon to grab, too. So it's not like, oh, she just happened to be handed one of these.
And yeah, we have her pulse knife, but she could have had a plasma gun. She could have had so many weapons that you've seen in use. And you know she has a pulse weapon because she uses it on droids and a bunch of other things. And it's the most anticlimactic thing, and I don't understand. It's not like he's bad at action scenes or combat. He's good at combat. Why did he not combat? It didn't ruin it enough to be like, oh, -1 star, but why? It seems very counterintuitive. Anyway, I guess she gets to go to Raffi now. And I thoroughly expected this to be the part where Raffi breaks her heart, but no. Raffi just plays along. I don't trust her still. Thoroughly expected that to pay off maybe in another book. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am, though. I'm pretty set with how Raffi's going to eventually betray Frey. But Raffi seems happy to see her. Is totally down for this, ready to make the announcement together. And I thought she was being a little too good. I thought she was going to make an announcement like, this is my twin sister. She is crazy. Whatever. No, actually does it, and it actually gets transmitted out. Thoroughly expected her to pretend to transmit. No, it actually went out to the people, and this is going very smoothly.
Unfortunately, the speech was not good enough to save the whole world.
Because like I said, my whole plan was to do this, and then the next step was victory. I don't know what to do now that we don't have victory.
Yeah.
They get her. They're like, okay, we need to go downstairs, but for whatever reason, X has destroyed the stairs because it's quote-unquote a wolf thing to have no retreat. Not accurate. But we've been over our wolf science in Lunar Chronicles, so it's fine. But they can't go back down the stairs to make their escape, so that she uses her knife to just cut holes in the floor. But oh no! Where in the world have they gone? The soldiers can't find them! There are holes in the floor! How did y'all even come up the stairs? They're so destroyed they can't go back down them! What has happened?
Maybe there were more stairs. Frey's never gone through the whole house before. She don't know.
True. So they go to the trophy room, which is literally this creepy place where the dad just hangs paintings of people that he has destroyed. Of all of his enemies that he has bested. Like, there's a photo of the used-to-be head of the family woman. And across from that, Frey finds her own picture. And Frey picks up on the fact that paintings take a while, so he probably had that before she went to the Palafaxes. I'm stuck on the fact that she doesn't seem to get that not only did he sacrifice her, because she had a hard time with that, and is like, oh yeah, she sacrificed me, he enjoyed it to the point he wanted a painting of her so he can look at it and be like, haha, I have destroyed you. That doesn't seem to click in her mind.
Yeah, she still thinks she's kind of a person, though, and he doesn't see her as one.
But not only is it you're not a person, you're an enemy to me, and you have been. And that definitely pans out when later you have the meeting, and he's like, Frey has become too powerful. I thought we had destroyed her, and whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's about right. But anyway, in the point in time, Raffi's like, hey, I can't leave. I have a bomb necklace.
It's cute, too.
Jeez! Although a part of me wonders if it actually was. But we'll see next book. So this random doctor that's been hanging out that I can't pronounce the name of, but he owns a science of cooking show. He's kind of funny. I actually like him a lot. He's just there to be the science guy. Oh, we have hacked into the system and created a code to make solar panels attack the city. Science! Oh, we know exactly how long we can stay on this mountain based on water and food. Science! What science? All the science. He knows every science. He is the best at all of the sciences.
It's just science.
It's just science. He knows all of it. He really does. He's a master of chemistry, physics, biology, and everything in between. Oh my gosh. But I mean, soft science fiction. I'm fine with it. So anyway, he set the necklace and he decides that the code in the necklace is way too simple. And so either the dad was worried about actually murdering her or there's a trap in the hardware. But Raffi's like, nah, and presses the button. And she doesn't feel like the type of person to take risks. So I feel like she knew it was not going to explode. explode. But I will see next book. You can't tell me, / you won't. You are currently very firmly that you are not going to ruin things for me, but we will see.
Well, and it's so difficult because I just did...
You did all of them!
The whole series on audiobook recently, and I had to go back earlier today and double check and make sure where we stop in this book. I'm trying not to ruin it like I did with every single Lunar book that we read.
I was thoroughly expecting you to accidentally drop stuff. That's why I've been like, and I know it doesn't say in this book, cough, cough.
And I can't tell you anything.
I know you cannot tell me that she's totally the one behind all this. But anyway, so they're about to leave and it's going to be fine, except they found out on the news feeds that Cole has been taken prisoner. And so Frey decides to stay behind and pretend to be Raffi to save Cole.
This poor broken girl puts on the bomb collar. But their love is so real.
I believe it, honestly.
Callie would never.
I liked the romance in extras. I don't know, this one felt more real. Because that one was built on lies. Let's be straight. That one was built on lies and then they figured themselves out. This one is built on trauma, which is much more solid. Thankfully, they are not toxic people. They are both very good at heart, even though Frey should probably be a little bit more messed up than she is. So it works out. I'm not saying that trauma bonding is the key to a successful relationship, but it is the key to a very fast relationship.
Well, and they have the trauma bonding after all of the lies, but they very quickly, even her secret hidden identity that she's never told anyone, she pretty immediately tells Cole as soon as they're out and about and not under either of their parents' roof.
Well, that's the thing. Cole has a moment and it's like, oh my gosh, you lied to me because of the twin things. And then Frey has a moment of, oh my gosh, you lied to me. I thought you were into me. And then he's like, but I was actually into you. And then they just believe each. No trust has been lost here. And they are put into a position where they literally have only each other. And that's why I say Frey switches sides so fast, because she shows up and she's there for her sister, for her family. She's going to do this. She's going to prove herself to her father. And then, granted, he does something kind of crazy and she kind of saw coming, but then immediately she was like, yes, I will help Cole Palafax take down my father. I will join the rebels and take down his tower.
To be fair, she was willing to kill her dad for just about any reason. Raffi, you sure you don't want me to kill him?
You sure?
You sure? I'll do it.
It's not a hard decision, I promise. Yeah, then the whole time she's like, I want to save Raffi because they have a psych person that's been analyzing her, and they somehow managed to decide that Raffi has split personality disorder instead of the fact that they were two different people.
Which, to be fair, why would you think there were two people?
Because apparently they can only do body scans when they're close by, not farther away. Anyway, so many things.
With all the spy tests you can't get through and record.
I don't know.
The spy test is a little bit confusing because, it's watching you 24/7, but then how did more people not know they were twins? Yes, the base information, whatever, doesn't belong to anybody but, I guess, the dad. But he has to have a team. So does everybody on the team, they're fully aware? That's cool.
There's like a small team that knows that she exists. Propaganda can only go so far. We know a lot about what's happening in North Korea, even when they don't want us to know what's happening in North Korea, you know?
Raffi's friends. How could they not tell that this weirdo is not their friend? But she also doesn't seem to have any best friends, so her best friend is her hidden sister.
I mean, for real, yeah. I don't know. There's a whole thing. Anyway, so she's pretending to be Raffi and meets with her father. This is when I thought there was going to be a reveal of what his name is, but there's not. I'm waiting. Fernando? Was that his name? Fresco? I can't remember the guy with the F. For whatever reason, he was more important than Paris, and he kept showing up even though he didn't do anything. It should have been Paris. Anyway, beside the point. And so they bring in Cole to the meeting to decide what to do with him. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to execute him on the feeds. And Frey is like, well, what if we didn't? And the dad's like, but what if we did? And she's like, what if we didn't? Because he's going to execute him on the feeds to make Frey upset and, of course, show the world that he's a crazy person. For sure. The worst. What happened to not wanting to unite the world against us? Anyway, she decides instead of killing him, she should marry Cole. Raffi marry Cole. And then it's a blood alliance. And then it's not occupation. She probably would have gotten an A in her propaganda class because she does a really good job there. Okay, yeah, forced marriage, but it kind of works for optic reasons. And then she's like, oh, think about how angry that'll make Frey if I'm married to Cole. Even I don't think it's legal because she's not Anyway, those logistics for another book. At some point, Cole said, oh, you're steadfast, and I'll never use that to describe anyone else.
Oh, they talk about being steadfast way too much.
So we're at the end of the book, and she's like, hey, I'm super steadfast. And so Cole gets it. Oh, you're Frey. And I don't know if I would have made it that obvious who I am right in front of Dad. But, I mean, it's Frey and Cole. I'm not surprised she's not immediately sharing her secret here. That's kind of the vibes they have now. They have no secrets.
She said, I don't want you to hate me even for a second because you think I'm my sister. It's me.
It's me. And there's a moment where he's surprised, but then he plays along. I was like, what if he didn't play along and did something stupid? That's a lot of trust in this person, which, I mean, granted, that's what their relationship is, so it is what it is. Anyway, that's the book. So much happens and so much doesn't happen at the same time. Once again, this feels like a book with a lot of story and not a lot of plot, which is why I feel like beach read vibes, because you could pick up a chapter. They're really short chapters, too. You could pick up a chapter and read it and then put it down, pick it up later and just read it. It's just very casual. Granted, I read it very fast, but it's just very casual.
Yeah.
General thoughts about this book. I'm very proud of my Spanish. They said French a couple times, and I went ahead and Google translated it, and then they were like, oh, what does that mean? And like 2 pages later, and told you what the French meant. But I got most of the Spanish. I feel very proud of myself. I'm going to bask in this glory.
Proud of you.
But yeah, we kind of ignore a lot of what happened in the original trilogy. We completely ignore extras. And now we're here in the beige land. If the dad is not someone we know, I'm going to be so mad. Beside the point. Or at least related to someone we know, you know? Anyway, for how deep it is, it's very casual and chill. And the pacing makes it so it's not as big a deal. There are moments where they're like, oh my gosh, soldiers are dying. These are people.
Cole's whole family's dead.
Anyway, back to whatever we were doing.
Light, fluffy moment.
Theo has a limo. It's hard to explain, but I stand by. If you liked the original series, you'll like these books. I think they're an improvement, which is good, because like I said, it's been 10 years. You hope someone advances and gets better as they go, and I think he has. I think having so much time away from the original series gave him a good chance to come back in and I think do it better. Granted, I've only read the first book, and I still think Uglies is pretty okay, so we'll see where we are at the end of this. But for now, I am optimistic. Your silence speaks volumes.
I can't tell you nothing. I'm trying to be good. I will say nothing.
One question for the author. I'm curious if the movie Falling Apart played a role in the publishing schedule of the series. Because it was published in 2018, and I feel like that's when the movie tried to happen and just completely fell apart. Let me double check. But I wonder if this was meant to go out after the movies. Like, the movie comes out, you get the big boost of sales for the books, and then, oh my gosh, come to you from the Uglies movie. Like, if it was as big as Hunger Games or something, here's a new series. And they were waiting and holding it. But it also does feel like he wrote them a lot later. And so maybe he just wrote them in like 2017 or something, and they just went ahead and published it. But I'm curious if the movie Falling Apart, or possibly happening on again, off again, played with the schedule in some sort of way.
Ooh, that's a good thought. I still have hope for the potential movie that is never happening.
Okay, maybe not, because it was in development since 2006.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
And then it was filmed in 2021, and it was intended to stream as a Netflix exclusive, and we are in 2024.
Yeah, Joey King, I think, was supposed to be in this.
Joey King was Tally Youngblood.
But also COVID.
If you go on Joey King's Wikipedia page, they have put The Uglies in her 2024, saying it's in post-production, and she is an executive producer. I don't know.
That's also Wikipedia, though, so.
Now that I know it's the opposite way, I wonder if publishing the new book is what got the Uglies movie out of development Hades. And then they tried, but then something happens with Netflix and it fell through, and it's just never going to happen.
Well, they started thinking about it in 2006.
2006 is when it started in development.
The problem with the original Uglies book is it's so problematic.
It's terrible. They should just skip to the Imposters, honestly.
It's 2024. What can you get away with?
Yeah, and we went over this when we did the Uglies series. I don't want it to be done faithfully to the books, and I don't want it to be updated and completely changed. I just think the time for an Uglies movie has passed by.
The Imposters movie could be real.
What's your question?
Mostly just, have you ever met twins before? He tries so hard to make them complete opposites in every single way, yet also bonded to the extreme that they would die and kill for each other and plot against everybody.
I don't know. Like I said, they come across as Tally and Shay to me, but it's Shay's perspective instead of Tally's. Back when Shay was like, oh my gosh, my best friend, and I love you, and you're amazing, and then you stole my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Except the joke is that Raffi isn't stealing the boyfriend. Frey is stealing her own boyfriend.
I know.
I don't know. It just feels like the same archetypes all over again.
You are pretty insightful on that one because he definitely likes archetypes and different things like that.
Which, I mean, that's unavoidable in fiction.
Yeah, there's lots of parallels between the two.
Which isn't a bad thing. That's what we were saying the whole time, is we wanted Shay's perspective because Tally's kind of the worst. And that's the vibe I'm getting for Raffi. And from your silence, I feel like I'm right.
We'll remember this.
We'll put a pin in that. Rating. I would give this watching a car crash out of 10. A car crash where no one actually ends up getting injured. Even though people definitely...
So many people get injured in this, Sam.
They do, but I'm talking about real world. It's one of those things where you know it's going to end badly for the cars, not the people. It's not that serious. But you have to watch, and that's what this book is. It is Imposters, the book of terrible plans. All of the plans are terrible, except maybe this ending one, but probably that one's also going to go wrong as well. So it's just the book of bad plans, but it was entertaining, and I still gave it 5 stars.
I would give this a throwing a pulse knife at all of my problems out of 10. And it's basically the same thing you said. Not thinking through a single plan, but doing it in a slightly better way than Tally made any choice ever.
Truth.
Just a big part of it is they're bad at plan making. They thought a speech would heal the world, but every single choice Tally made was so brain missing. And at least they're trying to think these through. They're just dumb people.
In their defense, they're just dumb.
They're just dumb.
Read again. I'd read it again. I'd be totally fine with reading this one again. You're going to, because you binge this series like once a year. You have read specials more than any other person on this earth.
Well, and this last time I did all of the books, so I might just do the one. I have the physical copy, so I might actually get around to it, but I don't know. I really like the narrator's voice in the audiobooks of this. Also love audiobooks constantly. And these are kind of short books because they're kind of light and fluffy and quick.
And the chapters are so short. I found myself reading several of them without feeling like I read a chapter, you know?
Yeah.
They're like 4 pages.
And it's interesting, even when no plot happens, the story's moving. They're going.
The action scenes are very good. I liked it.
I always reread, so I'll do this one again.
But have you read this book? Who do you think the father is? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like. And if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thanks for exploring Imposters with us. Join us next time when we'll be covering Unbirthday by Liz Braswell. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Danielle.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape With Me Book Club is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.